Most people think planting a tree in front of their home is always a good thing. But in Feng Shui, the wrong tree in the wrong place can quietly block your fortune, disturb your harmony, and even drain your peace without making a sound. It doesn't matter how healthy it looks. If it's the wrong form, the wrong symbol, or placed without thought, it becomes a barrier, not a blessing. You may recognize this feeling. You walk toward your home after a long day, but instead of feeling welcomed, something feels off. The gate feels heavy, the space feels crowded. The trees seem to press inward, not open up. You can't quite name it, but you felt it. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you truly looked at the trees near your front entrance? Do they invite life in, or unknowingly keep it away? In today's video, we're going to shift how you see the plants outside your home, not as decoration, but as communication. I'll walk you through which trees support prosperity, which ones disrupt it, and how to create a front yard that actually works with your space, not against it. If you've ever wondered why your home doesn't feel right, no matter how much you clean or rearrange, this may be the real reason. Let's begin. Section 1. Best trees to plant in front of your home for good Feng Shui. Most people believe that any green tree at the entrance of a house must be a good sign. After all, isn't greenery always life-giving? But in classical Feng Shui, that belief can lead to more harm than good. The tree you place in front of your house isn't just a backdrop for photos or a pleasant shade from the sun. It's a symbolic gatekeeper. And if it sends the wrong message, the energy that reaches your home may not be the kind you truly want. Picture this. You visit someone's home for the first time. Their yard is neat, the grass freshly cut, but there's a large, heavy tree planted directly in front of the entrance. Its branches droop low, casting shadows over the doorway. Even before the door opens, something inside you feels slightly uneasy. That quiet resistance, that sense of something's off, doesn't come from the decor. It comes from the way the space is breathing. And the first breath of any home starts right where the trees stand. In Feng Shui, trees are not just plants. They are vertical expressions of intention. Each species holds a different vibration, a unique symbolic role. According to the 5-element theory, trees belong to the wood element, which governs growth, vitality, and movement. But how that wood energy manifests depends entirely on the shape, height, placement, and symbolism of the tree itself. Let's begin with the most fundamental choice: bamboo. 1. Bamboo, the gentle protector. Bamboo is not loud. It does not cast deep shadows. It sways. It listens. And that is why it's one of the most revered plants in traditional Feng Shui. When placed at the front of the house, especially to the left of the gate as you're facing the house, bamboo serves as both shield and conductor. It helps slow down fast-moving Kai, especially from a road that leads straight to your gate, filters out environmental harshness, and creates what Feng Shui calls a buffer of clarity. In symbolic terms, bamboo represents resilience without resistance. It bends without breaking. It protects without hardening. This makes it ideal for homes at intersections, homes with aggressive architectural lines, or households recovering from instability. Without it, energy may hit your home too fast, creating tension, irritability, financial volatility, or even shallow sleep. With it, the rhythm softens. Kai flows like wind through reeds. To apply this practically, plant bamboo in clusters, never alone. Choose upright, thin-stalk varieties over bushy ones. Keep the base clean. Avoid letting it overgrow or dry out, as neglected bamboo sends the opposite message: confusion instead of clarity. Walk by it slowly each day. Let it remind you that strength has rhythm, not force. Now imagine the opposite: a home with nothing but concrete and steel at its entrance, fully exposed. The moment Kai touches that home, it has nowhere to settle. No filter, no guidance. That's when restlessness begins, physically, financially, even emotionally. Bamboo is not just an ornament. It's the breath between the outer world and the threshold of your inner life. But bamboo isn't the only guardian that can help. 2. Pine and cedar, the pillars of stability. Where bamboo offers flexibility, pine and cedar offer strength. In traditional Asian landscaping, these trees are considered the noble gentlemen of the plant world. Upright, evergreen, enduring, they represent the ability to withstand challenges, hold steady in changing weather, and offer protection that doesn't fade with time. In Feng Shui, a well-maintained pine tree placed near the front, but not blocking the main path, provides a kind of anchoring energy, what we call TR letter 1EA5N, TR letter 1EA1CH. This means stabilizing the home's foundation, not just physically, but symbolically. Pine speaks to perseverance, intergenerational blessings, and the kind of strength that doesn't need to be loud to be lasting. Let's say your home has faced repeated upheavals, moves, financial disruptions, or a sense of spiritual drift. A pine or cedar tree serves as a vertical talisman, quietly reinforcing the message. This house is rooted. This family stands. Just be careful with size. A pine that is too massive or placed directly in front of the door can create energetic pressure, like someone standing too close to your face. Give it space to breathe and keep its base visible. Homes that lack this kind of grounding often experience a feeling of not being settled. Decisions feel shaky. Plans feel temporary. A well-placed pine shifts that feeling entirely. 3. Kumquat and citrus trees, tangible wealth. While bamboo protects and pine supports, citrus trees, especially kumquats, invite wealth. Unlike conceptual abundance, citrus trees represent visible, real-world prosperity. Why? Because their round, golden fruits look like coins. Their vibrant green leaves echo the vitality of wood energy, and their fresh, clean fragrance evokes a space that is both alive and well-tended. In classical Feng Shui, kumquat trees are favored for southeast-facing homes, the direction tied to the wealth sector. But even if your gate faces another direction, placing a kumquat tree near the entrance on either side, but not directly in front, sends a universal message. Here we cultivate and celebrate prosperity. However, there's a caveat. This tree requires care. Overripe fruit left unharvested, browning leaves, or dry roots reverse the effect. In Feng Shui terms, this becomes stagnant fortune. Opportunities that come but aren't claimed, money that arrives but isn't received fully, happiness that fades before it's noticed. So how do you work with kumquats effectively? Simple. Harvest the fruit when ripe. Offer some to neighbors. Use others at your altar. Keep the tree in a pot if needed, but never let it wither. The tree doesn't just hold luck, it teaches you to recognize, collect, and share it. A clean kumquat tree outside a home says more than "we have money." It says, we know how to welcome it, how to respect it, and how to keep it circulating. 4. Erica palm or dwarf coconut, flow without force. For those living in tropical or humid climates, bamboo or pine may not be practical. This is where Erica palm or dwarf coconut trees become useful. They carry a vertical yet light structure, guiding Kai upward while letting light pass through, avoiding the heaviness of large trees with dense shade. These palms are excellent for modern homes that feel overly linear or minimalistic. They soften sharp lines, break up hard architecture, and create a sense of ease without clutter. But again, placement matters. Avoid planting directly in the path. Let them stand slightly to the side, offering form, not obstruction. Think of them as gentle greeters, not guards. They are particularly useful in spaces where the home's architecture is cold or impersonal. Their rounded leaves, soft sway, and tropical profile help rebalance what might otherwise feel sterile or overly controlled. Section 2. Trees to avoid in front of your home. 1. Cactus and spiky plants, the hidden danger behind the trend. Cactus may seem like a harmless choice, modern, low maintenance, and perfect for minimal gardens. But in traditional Feng Shui, cactus and other spiky plants carry a warning energy that quietly clashes with everything your front entrance is meant to offer. In Feng Shui, the entrance is known as the mouth of Qi. The first place energy enters your home. It's a threshold of welcome, opportunity, and connection. But when that entrance is flanked by cactus, with its sharp needles, pointed energy, and visual message of defense, the space begins to repel rather than receive. You may not notice it at first. A pair of cactus pots might look stylish on either side of your gate, but step closer and the body reacts. A subtle tension in the chest, a subconscious urge to step back. That's not aesthetic, it's energetic. In Feng Shui terms, this is Sha Qi, a form of cutting or agitating energy that disturbs harmony and flow. Homes with cacti at the entrance often experience unexpected stress. Tension in conversations, restless sleep, financial opportunity that arrives, but slips away. It's not superstition. It's how the symbolism of sharp, defensive plants affects the emotional and energetic tone of the space. This doesn't mean cactus has no place. Used in backyards, along fences, or on balconies, it can serve as a protector. But in front of the house, where energy should be invited, not challenged, it sends the wrong signal. Correction is simple. Relocate cactus to less sensitive areas. If you love their shape, balance them with round-leafed plants that symbolize softness and receptivity. Or better yet, replace them with bamboo, citrus, or peony, plants that gently guard while still allowing energy and people to enter freely. Because sometimes the hardest thing isn't building boundaries. It's knowing when to soften them. And maybe it starts with a single question at your door. Is this plant keeping harm out or keeping good things from coming in? 2. Weeping willow, when beauty carries the weight of sorrow. There's something undeniably poetic about the weeping willow. Its long, cascading branches move gently in the wind like a curtain of silence. In literature and art, it's often linked with nostalgia and beauty. But in Feng Shui, especially when placed in front of a home, this tree tells a very different story, one of decline, sadness, and energy that sinks rather than rises. In Feng Shui symbolism, shape speaks louder than species. Trees that grow upright are considered uplifting. They guide energy upward, supporting growth and forward movement. But the weeping willow's posture is the opposite. Its drooping form bends toward the earth, signaling descent. And what descends at the front of a house is often not just leaves, but luck, clarity, and emotional balance. Many people plant willows for their grace, only to notice, months or years later, that the atmosphere around their home has changed. Conversations feel heavier, motivation dips, financial decisions stall. The home no longer feels like it's holding its center. And while it may be hard to blame a tree, Feng Shui teaches that repeated exposure to downward-pulling symbolism subtly trains the energy of the home, and the people in it, to follow suit. That doesn't mean you must fear the tree. The willow is not a curse, but it is a mirror, and what it reflects at your front gate is a message of softness with sorrow, In small courtyards, this can feel like emotional fog. In larger homes, it may create emotional disconnection between members who live under the same roof. What can you do? If the tree is young or decorative, consider replacing it with something more upright, like camellia, citrus, or even bamboo. If the tree is mature and meaningful, relocate it to the backyard, where its symbolism can serve reflection, not reception. And if relocation isn't possible, prune the lowest branches so the tree begins to lift the space rather than pressing it down. Because at the gate of your home, what grows outward also grows inward. And when the first thing the world sees is a tree that weeps, it may quietly shape the story that follows. 3 dead, dying, or sick trees, when neglect becomes a signal. Some signs of bad Feng Shui aren't loud. They don't crack or shout or call attention to themselves. Sometimes they just stand still, quietly fading in the corner of your yard. A tree with yellowing leaves, a trunk gone brittle, a few lifeless branches hanging like forgotten gestures. It's not always intentional. Life gets busy. We tell ourselves we'll tend to it later. But in Feng Shui, these silent symbols speak louder than we realize. The front of your home is not just a practical space. It's a statement. It's where energy gathers before entering, where first impressions form, where the rhythm of your household begins. When the first thing it meets is a dying or neglected tree, the message is clear, even if unintended. This space is not alive. And what follows can echo that message in subtle but powerful ways. Homes with a sick tree near the entrance often report sluggish energy. Financial decisions feel stuck, plans remain unfinished, relationships feel strained. Not because of superstition, but because the visual presence of decay, especially in such a key location, quietly shifts how people feel when they enter and how they operate within. In the natural world, death is part of a cycle. But in Feng Shui, what we allow to remain in spaces of activation, like the front yard, can either invite fresh movement or trap the past. A decaying tree becomes a visual anchor for stagnation. It says, "Nothing is changing here." And over time, that message begins to take root in the lives of the people inside. The fix isn't complicated, but it does require intention. First, assess honestly. Is the tree sick or simply seasonal? If the trunk is cracked, the bark peeling, or pests have taken hold, it may be time to let it go. Releasing the old creates space for renewal. If it's a tree of sentimental value, consider replanting a new version nearby as a gesture of honoring the past while choosing growth. If the tree can still be saved, act promptly. Prune what's no longer viable. Nourish the soil. Remove signs of decay. In Feng Shui, this is more than gardening, it's energetic stewardship. It's a way of telling the space, we're paying attention again. Because when the entrance to your home holds life, care, and presence, everything inside begins to respond. So pause at your gate and ask, not what others might see, but, is what's growing here helping my life move forward or quietly holding it back? 4 large trees blocking the entrance, when shade turns into obstruction. There's something comforting about a big tree near the house. It offers shade, beauty, and a sense of maturity. Many homeowners plant large trees in front of their property to create privacy or to make the house look more anchored. But when a tree grows too close, especially directly in front of the main door, what seems like a gesture of protection can quietly become a symbol of obstruction. In Feng Shui, the main entrance is considered the mouth of Kai, the central point where energy, opportunities, and new beginnings enter the home. This isn't just poetic, it's practical. The front door sets the tone for how a house receives and responds to life. And if a large tree stands in its direct path, it's like putting a silent wall between you and everything that wants to come in. You might not notice the effects at first, but over time, a tree that blocks your doorway begins to change the energy of the space. Plans stall, momentum fades, visitors hesitate, deliveries go to the wrong place. You may start feeling like life is circling around you but not quite reaching you. This isn't bad luck, it's misalignment. Feng Shui teaches that when Kai encounters a blockage, it doesn't stop, it diverts. And when it diverts away from your main entrance, it takes with it the very things you may be waiting for. A promotion, support from others, smoother relationships, or a shift in your finances. You've created a pause where there should have been passage. What's more, large trees close to the house also cast deep shadows, especially if their branches hang low or grow wide. In symbolic terms, this dims the presence of the home. A bright, open entrance represents clarity, openness, and engagement with the world. But a shaded, obscured doorway suggests hesitation, retreat, or even hiding. So what can you do? First, step outside and look at your entrance not as the homeowner, but as a guest. Is the door clearly visible from the street? Does the tree enhance or hide the approach? If it blocks the sightline, leans over the path, or physically obstructs movement, it's time to adjust. If removal feels too drastic, trimming can already shift the energy. Raise the canopy so light returns. Create breathing space between the tree and the path. If the tree is well loved, consider flanking it with bright, low greenery or flowering plants to balance its heaviness. Because in Feng Shui, visibility is vitality. When your front door is clear, bright, and unobstructed, you're saying to the world and to your own life, "I'm ready, let it in." And maybe it starts with one simple question. Can opportunity find me, or have I unknowingly hidden the door? Section 3. Herb the Feng Shui mindset behind choosing the right tree. Most people choose trees based on looks, shade, or maintenance. But in classical Feng Shui, the process begins not with what pleases the eye, but with what aligns with your life. A beautiful tree in the wrong place can quietly disturb the flow of fortune. Meanwhile, a humble plant placed with care can become a silent magnet for peace, clarity, and prosperity. Let's pause here. How often do you walk past the tree in front of your home without really seeing it? Maybe you inherited it from the previous owner. Maybe you planted it because it was on sale or because it filled the space. But in Feng Shui, that tree is more than foliage. It's a message. And the question is, what is it saying? Feng Shui isn't about decorating, it's about directing. Every tree carries a shape, a posture, a rhythm. Some lift energy upward like a slow inhale. Others pull it downward like a sigh. Some trees are closed and spiky, others open and welcoming. Before you plant anything, the real question is, what kind of life are you inviting in? In the 5-element system, trees and plants belong to the wood element, which governs growth, expansion, movement, and flexibility. But not all wood is the same. Upright trees like bamboo or pine promote clarity and structure. Rounded trees with small, golden fruits like kumquat promote material wealth and emotional satisfaction. Meanwhile, drooping trees, or those with aggressive features, reflect stagnation or resistance. One common mistake is choosing based solely on trend. In recent years, ornamental palms, dense hedges, and tropical hybrids have become popular. But Feng Shui always asks, how does this tree affect the rhythm of energy between the outside world and the inside of your home? A dense wall of greenery might look modern, but if it blocks light, wind, and visibility, it also blocks fortune, communication, and harmony. Another mistake is treating tree placement as an afterthought. In reality, Position is as important as species. A tall tree placed directly in front of your main door, no matter how lucky in theory, becomes an obstacle. Meanwhile, a small citrus tree placed slightly off to one side of the gate can create a visual and energetic cue. We welcome abundance. We're open to growth. Homes that lack this conscious placement often experience what Feng Shui calls disrupted kai, a sense that life never quite flows. There's effort but no ease, activity but no satisfaction, good intentions but few lasting results. You clean, you arrange, you plan, yet something still feels stuck. Sometimes that something is just outside the door, rooted in soil, repeating an old message you never meant to send. So how do you realign? Start with these 3 principles. 1, clarity over clutter. Your entrance should breathe. Choose trees that open the view, not close it. Avoid overlapping branches or trees that lean forward like weight. 2, symbol over symmetry. You don't need identical trees on both sides. Focus instead on balance. 1 tree that lifts and 1 that softens may work better than forced duplication. 3, health equals harmony. A tree that is thriving will lift your space. A tree that is sick, overgrown, or dying will slowly weigh it down. Energy follows attention. So water, trim, and care for it as you would care for your mindset. If you're unsure where to begin, walk outside your front gate and look at your home the way a stranger might. What's the first thing they see? Does the tree welcome them or stop them? Does it create warmth or distance, shadow or light? Feng Shui is not about fear, it's about refinement. You're not expected to get it perfect. But when you begin to choose trees based on meaning, not just maintenance, you shift from reacting to your space to shaping it. Because the truth is, every home tells a story. The trees you plant are the first chapter. And the question worth asking is, does this tree represent the life I'm trying to grow or the life I've outgrown? This was never just a conversation about trees. It was a quiet reminder that what we plant outside of us always reflects what we are cultivating within. Because in truth, the trees at our gate are not just part of our landscape. They are part of our language. They speak long before we do. They tell the world whether we are open or guarded, grounded or scattered, holding on or ready to receive. And in that way, choosing a tree is never just about greenery. It's about clarity. It's about intention. Maybe today wasn't about giving you a list of rules, but helping you begin to see differently. To notice how something as ordinary as a leaning trunk or an overgrown branch might be echoing something deeper. A pattern, a habit, a forgotten thought about how life should enter your space. And maybe, just maybe, the shift isn't in the tree, but in the way you now stand beside it. So as you step out your door tomorrow, don't just pass by the plants like you always do. Let your eyes rest on them. Feel the rhythm of what you've allowed to grow there. Ask not whether they're beautiful, but whether they're aligned. Whether they still represent who you are becoming, or if they quietly reflect who you used to be. Because the trees in front of your home are never just decoration. They are the first handshake between you and the world. And what they say is what life tends to echo. So now the real question is not about species or size or style. It is this: what kind of life are you inviting to stop at your gate, and what might still be hesitating to come in?